Right, good morning to everyone who's just joining us from the waiting room. We're going to wait just a minute or two to let some more folks through, and then we'll get going this morning. Thank you guys for joining us. All right, all right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is the last day of our Food for All Summit. I see a lot of names on this list that have been with us all week. So if you've been with us for a majority of the session this week, we are so excited to have had you this entire time or part of the time. And if you are brand new, this is your first Food for All session, welcome. It has been an incredible week of knowledge sharing and learning and feeling with our colleagues and our friends and whatnot. So this is the last day. And my name is Spencer Moss. I'm the executive director of the West Virginia Food and Farm Coalition. We are a member organization to the Food for All Coalition, which is the group putting on this summit. The coalition is a bunch of organizations that work on food security policy together, and we're responsible for this conference. And they're an amazing group of organizations, and they've done some amazing work. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that and to have done this summit with all of them and all of the amazing panelists. And today is no exception. Today I'm so excited for this session and all of the amazing work and the amazing panelists that are going to share with us today. But before we get started, I want to kick it to Austin from 84 Agency. They are providing tech support for us today. So if anybody has any tech issues, please feel free to holler at Austin or Cam in the chat and they will help you out. Austin, on to you for your tech talk, buddy.
Thanks, Spencer. As Spencer said, I am Austin from 84 Agency, and myself and my colleague Cam are here to provide tech support today and make sure that everything kind of goes smoothly. So real quick, if I could direct everyone's attention to the toolbar, which if you move your mouse over the bottom of your Zoom window, you should see. At the left of that toolbar, you've got your mute button and your stop video button. If you're not one of our presenters, we do ask that while our presenters are speaking, you keep your audio muted and your video off. There will be a Q&A session at the end where the presenters may ask you to unmute yourself to ask questions, and at that time, obviously, that's fine. But for the presentation portion, we do ask that you keep yourself muted and with your video turned off so we can focus on our presenters. If you move over a little bit, you'll see your chat. That is where, at any point during the presentation, feel free to submit questions for that Q&A session at the end. We do have someone monitoring the chat. And also, if you have any tech support issues, any problems with Zoom, anything like that, feel free to put those in the chat, and myself or Cam can respond directly to you on those. For those of you watching on Facebook Live, we do have someone monitoring the Facebook comments as well. So if you are watching on Facebook Live and you have questions for the presenters, definitely get those in the comments, and we will try and get those to the presenters and have them answer those if time allows. And lastly, if we do have the ability to block anyone out of the meeting if something untoward should arise in the chat. So please remember to keep all your chats respectable. All right, and with that, I will hand it over to Amy Jo.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad that you're all here. Happy Friday. I'm Amy Jo Hutchison. I'm an organizer for Our Future West Virginia. And I know that we've taken in a lot this week. I'm so excited to be here leading this workshop because what we've done all week has led directly to this moment right here. You know, everything we talked about on Monday led to today. Tuesday, Wednesday, it all led to today. We've talked about research and policy around food insecurity. We've talked about how communities have responded to food insecurity. And we talked about racial disparities in the food system. And today we're really going to talk to the experts, the people who struggle with food insecurity on a daily basis. But before our panelists introduce themselves, I want to bring attention to the fact that so many of us are struggling with issues like food insecurity. And on Monday, we watched a video, Surviving on Peanut Butter and Crackers. And there was a part in that video where they have me saying, no one should be so hungry that they want to die. But I want to let you know that what had happened before that was, in this group, there was a young man, and the leader was asking for the members to keep him in their thoughts and prayers, because this young man was 19 years old, I believe, and he had just tried to take his life and was in the hospital. And the reason why was because he was so hungry that he wanted to die. And so that's why I said in that video, no one should be so hungry in America that they want to die. And so, as an organizer around food insecurity, I've heard some pretty heart-wrenching stories. And I think that we just need to really start telling these stories, because poverty and financial struggle, it forces a lot of us to keep a lot of secrets. And, one secret is I'd almost lay money on the fact that there are some of us here right now who probably don't have as much food at home as they really could use or need. But society tells us that we need to hold that as a secret and that we shouldn't say stuff like that out loud. And that's what makes what these women, these panelists today, are doing it so incredibly brave and so incredibly important. Because once we begin to tell the truth about what the struggle looks like, once we push through our fear and the shame of being stuck inside that struggle, and once we stop talking about how to fix these problems for those experiencing them, and start talking to impacted folks about how to fix these problems with them, then that's how we're going to see the change. And so with that being said, I just want to take a few minutes and allow the panelists to introduce themselves. Amber, let's start with you.
My name is Amber. I live in St. Albans. I am a direct care staff worker for mentally ill and developmentally delayed people. I have a degree in ASL and deaf studies. I do work in an all-deaf home, so I work 12-hour midnight shifts in total silence most of the time. And I have a family of 4. My oldest son is 14. He's a 2-time cancer survivor. My youngest is 12. He's mildly autistic. My husband of 15 years suffers from traumatic brain injury, and I am the only income in the home.
Amber, do you need any special training or skills for your job?
Yes, you do have to have an education of ASL level 4 classes, as well as a deaf studies degree. I work in the deaf home that I work in.
All right, thank you for sharing. I'm so glad you're here. Jasmine, do you want to go next? Or will you go next?
I will. They just started some gas work right outside my window, so I apologize if you guys get that. My name is Jasmine Reynolds. I am the center director at King's Daughters Child Care Center in Wheeling. I have a 3-person household. It's me and my 2 children. And for my degrees are actually behind me. I have an early education 2-year degree, and I also have a 4-year business degree, my bachelor's. And I'm just really excited to be here and to give you the little bit that I know about all of this.
I'm glad you're here too. Thanks, Jasmine. Mary, it's your turn.
Hi, I'm Mary Reinbold. I am from Benwood in Marshall County, West Virginia. I'm a single mom of 3 kids, 2 teenagers and a 6-year-old, so that's fun. I have a 2-year degree in psychology, and I'm currently working on a bachelor's degree in business administration, which is completely different from psychology, but there's a better career path in business administration, unfortunately, more money. I currently work as a document processor for a local bank in their consumer lending department. It does not require any special training or education, but it is a very high paced, high stress job that pays very low wages, but I actually enjoy the work. So
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I'm glad you're here. And we have Stormy Johnson on the phone. Stormy, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
My name is Stormy Johnson. I'm the student support specialist for Preston County Schools. I'm a single mom of 3. My oldest just moved out, so I have 2 at home, a 12-year-old and 13-year-old. And I have a bachelor's degree in human services. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thanks, Stormy. And then I also want to point out, we were supposed to have another panelist. Taylor Becker was going to join us from Weston, but we're celebrating Taylor's absence today because she just started a new job this week, and so she's not able to be here. But we all got together last night, and Taylor made some comments, and so she gave us permission to share those. So I'm sure from time to time you'll hear comments that Taylor would have added to the conversation or did add to our conversation. I also want to let you know that just to keep this interesting, we're going to be presenting some challenges for y'all throughout. So pay attention for those. I'll try to pin them and make sure that I mention them all. But let's get started. Y'all ready? We need a deep breath. All right, let's go. So Amber, I'm going to start with you. When I first asked you to do this today, what was your immediate reaction?
I was stricken with fear, and honestly, it was more of a fear of, holy cow, what if my family sees this? More so than I have to talk in front of a bunch of people that I don't know.
Do you want to say more about that?
I still have that fear right now. My sister works as a registered dietitian, and she works with a lot of kids that have to have feeding tubes and such, and she works in this industry, and she doesn't have a clue that I'm doing this panel. So I kind of am watching my phone to be like, is she watching this? Or because no one in my outside of my immediate family knows or understands exactly the struggles that we have here at this time.
Yeah, I mean, all of you, the level of risk that you all have taken just to be here and share your story, like, it's amazing, and I applaud you for that. So with all that being said, Amber, why did you do it anyway? Why are you here?
Because it needs to be talked about. It needs to be brought to the forefront, and need to understand the struggle is real and there needs to be solutions.
Yeah, and do you think that maybe, we were together for a brief time last night as a group, so do you think that there are solutions that will come from inside that group of people who are actually impacted by food insecurity, that maybe not, that like maybe they won't get the same ideas or thoughts if they've never experienced it?
I hope so. I mean, in talking with the group of women that we spoke with last night, it was amazing. The conversation that was had was amazing, and it was amazing to hear other women say things that I feel and that I have experienced, and to know that I'm not the only one that feels that way. I think a lot of things were talked about last night, and a lot of things were put out there in idea form so that we know exactly what it is we want to discuss today and let people know, so to help move the process forward.
Yeah, amen. I think so too. And then there's something that I want to talk about here. As an organizer, most of my work is done with poor folks, right? That's what I do. My lived experience is poverty on some level, and I'm a single mom. So the panel, there are a couple of you that aren't a single mom. Taylor wouldn't have been a single mom. But that seems to be like, that's just my passion, right? Working with mothers, poor mothers. And I want to touch on the fact that one of the most common questions I'm asked by people is, well, where do you find poor people, or how do you know people are hungry, right? So can you kind of talk for a minute? Because you have done some pretty risky stuff for me since February. And like you were interviewed and you were featured in an article in the USA Today about this very thing, right? So can you tell everybody like how we met?
We met, I obviously saw your viral video. I saw it posted on the Facebook page of a mutual friend of ours, who is also a cancer mom. And through her, I commented on, on your video, and I sent you a friend request on Facebook. And, through that, I feel like we've become pretty good friends. We have figured out that we have a whole lot in common. And, that's how I got to know you. And then in watching your video, it's funny. I just had my coworker last night watch your video, and no matter how many times I watch it, I cried every time because it is so impactful.
Oh, I love you, Amber. But I want to point out is that you and I have never met in person.
No,
right? Like
never in person.
No, we've never even been. I've never left the Northern Panhandle since the virus started. So, I just want to pin that because you've done some pretty risky stuff and you're out here. We're still able to have a relationship, even though we've never met in person. And so I just want people to take note about that. That Taylor is the same situation, right? I met Taylor online. She was defending me against fat jokes in a comment thread about that same video. And so I actually said, hey, are you from West Virginia? Because I recognize your fire, right? And so
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that like starting a relationship and forming a relationship of trust and mutual respect in this work, that can happen in a number of ways. And
I think I'm sorry, not to interrupt you. I think for me personally, I think that the friendship blossomed more so because your video spoke to my soul. You told my life in that testimonial. That was my life. I had just recently had to tell my kids, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
My son's a football player. For this whole season, he's played football and come home every evening after football practice and say, Mom, my toe hurts. And I was like, oh, well, you probably just have a blister on your foot. No big deal. I finally realized he needed new cleats, and I had to go buy new cleats. And do you know how big of a person you feel when you realize that your son is wearing a size 9 cleat and needs a 10.5, and you can't afford to go buy him the proper equipment that he needs because you don't have the extra income to go pay $120 for a men's size pair of cleats. But somehow we made it work.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we really need to highlight too. Is that if you're suffering with food insecurity, you're suffering with a lot of insecurity.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's all related. So very much related. Yeah. Amber, I'm grateful for you. Thank you. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Jasmine, you're welcome. Jasmine, I'm going to move to you. So what made you decide to do this today? Because our relationship started with census work. Mm-hmm. And then I was told you were a child care provider. And so I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I want to talk to you about child care. And then one day I just sent you a message because I assumed since you were a single mom that you were on Snap. And I was like, hey, Jasmine, are you on Snap? So I just kind of took a guess at a stab in the dark there. But last night in the conversation that we had, the prep conversation, you were talking about one of your child care staff and how much money she receives every month on her income. Let's talk about her. Like, first of all, can you explain what it's like to be an early childhood provider and an early childhood staff in West Virginia, and then kind of talk about the small amount of assistance that she's given?
Absolutely. So, child care, one in West Virginia is, there's such a high need for it, but it's not there. And we here in Wheeling have a few local centers around, but we right now, like we have 170 families on our waiting list. So in going into that, we are extremely over regulated, but underfunded. So I think people think that we're making more money than what we actually are. So I have a wonderful employee. She's a single mother of one. She is making around $10 an hour, and she received $16 in food stamps when she applied. So she went through all of that paperwork. She went through all of the things that they asked for, which is almost everything but your firstborn. And she was given $16. So she was saying, that's not even worth it. That's not worth the time. That's not worth the paperwork. That's not worth the embarrassment for $16. You know, at the end of the day, that's going to get her, what, a couple gallons of milk, cheese, a loaf of bread, and she's about done. So it's very frustrating here as an administrator in childcare that we are trying to encourage and give back to our employees and do everything. But when they take a full-time job here, if they were on assistance before, if they were getting full, you know, SNAP benefits, taking a $10 an hour job is now going to make them lose their benefits. I just had another employee started working here, a little bit above minimum wage, full-time, wasn't working before, so she got all the benefits. Started working for us, wonderful employee. She lost all of her benefits because she's a single person. She doesn't have any children. So it's so hard because it almost makes her not want to work anymore. You know, she can stop working in childcare, which is extremely important. The first few years of children's lives are, I mean, you are literally paving the way to how this child is going to function for the rest of their life. And I have people that understand that, but have to make that decision of, I can't do this anymore because the $10 an hour you're giving me makes me lose out on hundreds of food stamp benefits and the medical card. So it's so very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I know across the state, I saw that Seth DeStefano from the Center of Budget and Policy is here. So Seth, correct me if I'm wrong, but around 90% of West Virginia child care workers are living in poverty, right? And yet the training that they have, I was an early Head Start teacher for a number of years, so I know this firsthand, but can you talk to us a little bit about how much training that these child care workers have to go through? And
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So first, when you first come in the door, before you can go into the classroom, I mean, you need CPR and first aid, you need medication training, you need child abuse and neglect training, and then you need continuing ed. So every year you need at least 15 hours, depending on your tier level. We're specifically a tier 2 level, so we need 18 hours of training. So these are all after hours most of the time. Now, because of COVID hit, a lot of them are, you know, online, which is nice. But we constantly have to continue education, all kinds of different training. Sometimes the state will throw like a mandatory training. The most recent one was called pre-service. It's kind of like a mixture of different items and childcare. So they have to do so much. And I think people think that childcare is, oh, you just drop your kid off, they run around all day, well, you know, diaper them when they need it, you know, feed them. These girls have to do lesson plans, hitting fine motor, gross motor, all kinds of different developmental areas to make sure that these children are growing, learning. And we're viewed not like how we're viewed in the school system, which blows my mind. Our girls have to have, if not almost equal amount of training that people do as teachers do in the school system. And so, but we're completely separate from all of that. We don't get the same funding like they do, but it's extremely important. So we're asking a lot of our workers and need to give back a little.
Yeah, and just the fact that here they are, you know, they've dedicated themselves to helping families give the best start to their kids, right? While they
Mm-hmm.
get $16 a month in assistance to make sure that their own children have that
Right.
very same start. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you,
Right.
Jasmine. Thank you very much for
Welcome.
that. And hey, Mary, tell us a little bit about your job. I mean, because, you know, banking is a pretty respectable career, but what I'm really interested in you telling folks is about that Christmas bonus.
So I received an email from my supervisor yesterday asking if I was okay for the holidays, and that she had recommended me for a donation food box from our HR department. And it just kind of took me aback for a minute because they know how much I make, obviously, because they pay me. And yet they see that there is a need for their employees to need help with food around the holidays. And so it's one of those things that makes you go, why aren't you paying me more so that I can feed my family on my own instead of asking your employees to give me food? And I signed up for it because, I mean, we could use it, of course, and then there's the embarrassment of I have to go to our headquarters office and walk in the building and say, I'm here to pick up my food box, you know, with my name tag on it. So everybody's going to know my name. And I have to go in and tell them, hey, I'm poor. Give me my food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel you on that. It's so, like, there seems to be like this societal belief that a lot of non-SNAP recipients have, that the taxpayers are subsidizing your income, right, Mary? Because you're a SNAP recipient. And
Yes.
so it's, you know, they don't want to pay for your family to eat better than theirs. But what they're really doing is they're really subsidizing your employer, right?
Yes.
So your employer doesn't have to pay a livable wage, and you can rely on the SNAP assistance to fill that gap. I mean, so I think that's something pretty interesting to talk about too. And I know Stefano and I, I call him my SNAP battle buddy, because we've had a lot of conversations around the work that we've done with SNAP. It's always under attack, right? It's the first benefit you lose pretty much whenever you get a new job or you take a raise or, you know, a promotion, right? It's like the first part of the cliff that you fall off. And I just think, like, let's start changing that conversation and the way we frame these conversations. Like, taxpayers aren't paying to feed your family, Mary. They're paying so your employer and everyone's employer who's in this situation, right? Because they can't pay you that kind of wage, right? Because they don't pay you that kind of wage. So I think that's
It's not that
probably
they can't, it's that they choose not to.
right. So I think maybe that's just another opportunity for us to kind of switch the narrative whenever we talk about these issues of food insecurity, you know, or any type of safety net issue, right? Any type of income support. And so this is where I want to issue challenge number 1. And I'm going to have Jasmine talk about this real quick for a second. But if there's anyone here who's never applied for SNAP benefits, I'm going to challenge you to go online and do that, to at least look through the application, to see the kinds of questions that you're asked to give information for. How did you put it last night, Jasmine? That they're all in your business, right?
Yeah, like I said, they ask for everything but your firstborn's blood type. They ask for your car, what it's worth, what year it is. It's really extensive. And like I said, I think for a lot of people, it's very embarrassing too. And then you feel guilty. You know, me personally, I went from a 2-income household. And then when I went to a single mother, I had to apply for food stamps. I mean, I lost a complete income and had to figure that out. And so when I put that I had a 2016 car, that's kind of, I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to be like, oh, what? No, you have your car is only 4 years old. You can go ahead and sell that and get a junker.
Yeah.
So doing that, it was right before COVID hit when I did this. I got $74 in SNAP. I got a 3% raise, annual raise, and they took it. So
So
it
wait,
just,
$74 a month in SNAP, and you have two boys, two young
I have
boys.
2 children. Yep, one just turned 10, the other's 2. And I completely lost half of my income. Well, not my income, but of course my household income. So it was a shock. I did not qualify for medical for myself. My job does not offer that. And so I have no health insurance, and my children are, thankfully, they were able to get on the West Virginia CHIPS, not the medical card, but we did qualify
Right.
for the West Virginia CHIPS. So grateful for that, of course. But $74, I had that for a couple months. COVID hit. They announced that they were going to stop reviews for that. And so I thought, oh, that would be nice, because, you know, we shut down for 2 months in childcare. So I thought, oh, thank goodness, you know, they're stopping the reviews. But I'm on top of things usually. So the day I got my review paperwork,
I
it
can
was,
attest for that.
yeah, it was sent back out that same day. And so my review was finished before this, you know, stopping of reviews started. So my benefits stopped literally the month of March when COVID hit. So I was out. I tried to contact my worker and say, hey, I already turned in my stuff, and I already got the notice that I don't apply, but I know that this, you know, there's exemptions and we can keep going, you know, with this special COVID stuff. Like, am I under that? Like, and I never even got a response at all. I called several times. I left messages. I was never contacted back to say, even sorry, no, you already did it, whatever. Nothing back.
And
So,
just because,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Amber.
I would like to add something to all of this particular conversation. I said that me and my husband have been together for 15 years. We've only been married for 4. So prior to us being married, we've lived together for 14 years. So when I would go and apply for food stamps, when my son was in cancer treatments and I couldn't work, we had 0 income other than the SSI check that we got because my son had cancer. I applied for food stamps. We were getting approximately $250 a month in food stamps. I honestly don't remember because it's been a while ago, the exact amount, but it was approximately $250 a month. We all had medical cards, you know, everything was okay in that instance. When we got married, now mind you, we all lived in the same house, so I had to report his SSI, my son's SSI, like everything had to be reported because we all lived in the same household. So all of that income was exactly the same. But the minute we got married, we lost it all.
Mm.
Why? Because we got married. So I literally told the caseworker when I did my review, I was like, so you're telling me that if I had not gotten married, this would all be just fine. And my kids, you know, grow up, you know, societally, premarital, you know, everything, and that would be fine. But because we got married and we're trying to have a family life, I'm being punished and can't receive these benefits anymore. You're telling me I would have been better off if I had not gotten married? And the woman was like, yeah, basically. So just one piece of paper that says you legally can file your taxes together.
Right.
Now you don't qualify.
Right.
Even though the income never changed.
And your husband doesn't work because he was in a car accident and he just can't work, right? He's on disability.
Correct. He has short-term memory problems.
Yeah.
And
just to clarify.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's just the whole application process. I remember the last time I applied, because I don't receive SNAP anymore, but my daughters, like Jasmine's sons, they do receive CHIP. And so the last time I had to go online and do my review, like I looked at the screen and it told me how much money I had in the bank.
Yeah.
And and I was like, whoa, because in my head I'm thinking this is Saturday. On Monday, my car payment's coming out. This is coming out. So I'm just gonna take that off my amount in the bank, right? But it was already filled in for me. So yeah, I mean, I think if you haven't ever tried to go through this process, then that's my challenge to you, is to go and just apply. you can do it online. You know, no harm, no foul, in my opinion. That's my unprofessional opinion. You know, but just to get a taste and an idea of the hoops you have to jump through and the information that you have to give. Yeah, thanks, y'all. And then Stormy, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
I can. So, Stormy, you said last night on the call that you would like for people to wear their, this makes me chuckle, $265 shoes and spend the day with you to see what it's like out here. You talked a little bit about how you tell people, I'll go to DHHR with you. Can you talk to that a little bit? Like, what makes you volunteer to go to DHHR with folks that you know or folks that you work with?
Well, because I've been there, I've went in there, I know the way that they talk to me at times. And if you go in there not knowing how the process is supposed to be, then they're going to be able to treat you like you shouldn't be treated.
And
I mean, it's definitely something, and this sticks in my mind still to this day. I talk to people about, you know, when you said people ask you, where do you find poor people? Well, exactly, like, you can't just like look and say, okay, well, this is a poor person. But I remember when you said that time that we went to the interims that someone said, make sure they don't dress up so we won't think they're poor.
A delegate said that, yes.
Yeah, and so that very statement made me, like, I joke about it, but it's not funny, because if I don't joke about it, then I'm going to cry about it. But, like, what does poor look like? Why are we being so stereotypical? Why are we not listening instead of judging? You know, we're all one decision away from some of the situations these people are in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to point out, Stormy, that last night you said that you used to tell your kids that you should go to school and get a degree so you can get a job to help people and care for people, because that's what you do, Stormy. Like, ever since I've met you, that's all that you've done is human service work, social service work. And last night you said that you're telling them now that's wrong. Go to school to be rich.
Well, I'm telling them, if they want to go to school, don't go to school to help people, because it won't pay the bills.
Yeah,
because it's true. You know,
yes.
as a single mom, before I had my job full time at the Board of Ed, I also was a home visitor. Well, when I was a home visitor, before I took the second job, I was receiving SNAP. My ex-husband doesn't pay child support. He's in arrears to the tune of $18,000. And I thought, you know, a little bit of extra money would help me out. Yet the minute that I got that little bit of extra money, I lost all those SNAP benefits. So, I mean, it's true. We shouldn't have to worry about, hey, do I take a raise and lose all those benefits? Or do I tell my employer, well, you know, I can't take that raise because I'm going to lose the ability to feed my family.
Yeah,
I mean, we see that a lot. We also see a lot of the employment happening, and you have to report to DHHR before you'd ever see a check. So you're cut off. I mean, it could be that you haven't worked for years and years and years, and you get a job, and your reward for getting a job is you have to stress and worry about how you're going to feed your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to chime in on that quickly, Amy Jo.
Go ahead, Jess.
You know, as a director here, so I signed some of the forms for the girls. Now we have probably have on some sort of assistance, whether it's housing, SNAP, medical card, whatever. And they do, when it's time for their verification, recertification for whatever they're doing, and they need me to sign off on these forms. And then when it's time for their, you know, annual bonus or I'm sorry, annual increase, they do question, you know, I can only make this month, you know, this much, or my rent's gonna double. So, you know, only give me this much. So that blows my mind. And they're right? I'm not gonna give you an extra, I don't know, $40 on your each paycheck because it's going to make your rent jump up
Right.
$200. You know,
Right.
that's crazy. It's a shame
Yeah.
that they have to choose that. You know, they
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah, we're faced with a lot of choices that shouldn't have to be choices if our system wasn't so broken.
You have
Yeah.
to stay in poverty to survive poverty.
Yes, you do.
Mm.
There's absolutely no incentive to try to work your way out of it unless you are all alone. If you have a family and you try to work your way out of poverty, it's only going to punish your family in the long run because it cut you off. And you know what do you do?
Well, it's like Amy Jo said, they know how much is in her bank account. We're not allowed to have savings. If we reach that point of, what is it, like $1,500 in our savings account, which that's 4 new tires for your car. That's not really a savings account. You lose everything. Once you hit that one point, there's no coming back from it.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that brings us right to, I just want to say that, you know, we hear a lot, right? Well, you should save money. You should save money. And I'm like, dude, we can't even put our money in the bank, right? Like, I mean, like, who keeps all their money in the bank?
I have $40 taken out of every one of my paychecks to put into a savings account. And I had saved up $500 hoping for Christmas presents. But when we moved, I had to spend that money on a moving truck, paint the house, and my van has about $1,200 worth of repairs that need to be done to it. And I can't even do that. My mom had to just buy me new tires because I had chunks of rubber missing out of my tires. They were so bald. And my mom had to purchase 2 new tires for me, who lives also on a limited income because she's disabled. You know,
Right.
if it wasn't for her, this winter I'd be driving around on tires that are just radial belts and no rubber.
Right. Right. So, challenge number 2 is if you know someone who's going to DHHR, why don't you volunteer to go with them like Stormy does, just to make sure that they're treated with respect and walk out of there with their dignity intact. Because I'm telling you, if you're struggling with any kind of financial insecurity, it's a constant struggle to keep your dignity intact. So that's challenge number 2. Mary, last night you and Taylor both spoke about your fear of losing SNAP. Taylor's fear is that her new job is going to push her off of SNAP and Medicaid, right? And she has 2 little girls, toddlers. That's that beautiful cliff effect that we've talked about and touched on. But you have 2 teenagers who are working. So can you explain to us why that is your worry now when it comes to your SNAP benefits? Is your kids actually entering the workforce?
Yeah, they both just started. I have a 19-year-old. Today's actually her birthday, and then a 17-year-old. And they both wanted to start working and make their own money. And so they both got a job at a KFC Taco Bell. And I'm scared to death that they are going to get paid before December, and I will have to turn in that income and lose all of my food stamps for the month of December. Not only that, but my rent is going to skyrocket because I live in subsidized housing. And so it's 30% of the income. And that includes all of the income that comes into the household. So if my rent triples, which in effect it will, and I lose all of our food benefits, it's not worth it for them to work. And do you know how hard it is to tell a 19-year-old who wants to be productive in society that, sorry, you can't work because I'm not going to be able to afford to feed you? That's a heart-wrenching discussion. And we had that discussion when they got offered the job. And I was like, this is what's going to happen, guys. You know, we're going to lose our food stamps. So we need to have a game plan set because it's going to happen. How are we going to be able to survive? I want you to work. I don't want you to feel like you can't work, but how can we make this work? Because we will lose it all. It's scary. I'm so afraid that I'm going to have to turn in my paperwork in a week and lose everything. Because I don't know what I'll do. I make $11 an hour and I have no idea what I'll do if I lose those benefits.
Right. And I think it's also important to point out that $11 an hour up here is good money, right? That's good money. That's a good paying job.
Yeah.
And yesterday I had a conversation and I was like, I just paid $2.29 for a gallon of gasoline for my car. West Virginia's minimum wage is like $8.75, which is well above the federal poverty guidelines, right?
Right.
But I'm like, so it's like 3 gallons of gas for an hour of minimum wage work. And here, especially in a lot of places, we're pretty blessed up here where we live. And all of us here do have access in the car to transportation. But if you're really living in an area that has no access to public transportation, you need a vehicle to go to work. So, and like Jasmine said, like now, if you want a certain type of assistance, you can't have a new car. You can't have a newer car. And so like, I just want to keep pointing out the fact that this is just also, I don't like to use the word intersectional, but I can't think of another word right now. It's just all intersectional. And if you know someone who's struggling with food insecurity, that very same person is struggling on a lot of other levels too, because the system works the way it's designed to work, right? It's fed off of inequities and just the belief system that we don't have the right to use our voices or to be involved in policy decisions, or the system wouldn't want y'all to be considered experts, right? Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. Jasmine, I'm going to say we've been fooled, and again, this is just that's just Amy Jo's talk, so there's no like real documentation about that, but we have been fooled into believing that SNAP is like a huge monetary benefit, right? Like everyone is receiving SNAP benefits, they're living large, and then we heard your story about you receiving $70 some a month and they took that away from you. But there are all these stereotypes out here. First, I think one of the assumptions that we make, and I'm guilty of this too, is that whenever we talk about food insecurity and food access work, we typically think about those people who are on SNAP. And so there is like this huge group of the working poor that we don't pay a lot of attention to, right? Like they're just not seen. And last night you had an idea about, policy and what would fix that. Like, what might help that. And so you talked about your $74 and you talked about your employees $16 a month. And so can you tell us a little bit about what you said about once you qualify, you qualify?
Right. So in theory, it would be nice. The guidelines I think need to be upped. I mean, I think those need to be taken a look at with the price of what food is nowadays. But I think it would be nice, almost like a WIC theory. If you qualify, you qualify. So if there's, say for children, and I'm just going to throw a number out there, $100 a month. So each child you have, if you qualify, if you come in these, reasonable guidelines, income guidelines, your family is, like for mine would be a family of 3. Maybe as an adult, I would get 150 and each of my children would get 100. So that way I have $350 to use. Because that's kind of what WIC is. WIC isn't, okay, here's your income. So you only qualify for 1 loaf of bread and 1 gallon of milk. It's if you qualify, here's your package for the month. Here it is. And WIC is a wonderful program. So I think that would, kind of be the nice thing. If you qualify, here's your benefit package of SNAP money. And that way we can eliminate this $16. It's not worth it at the end, like we said. So I think that would be a very nice way to get people these SNAP benefits. Because the other thing is if they're applying for them, they need them, right? I mean, we're not going to waste our time, apply for something, get that embarrassment, give all of our personal information away for nothing. So it would be nice if it was just kind of set up standard like that. You qualify, here's X number of dollars per person, split between obviously adult and child.
Yeah, and I think the summit, right, is bold changes. That's right there. And so I think it's going to take just a radical approach and just out of the box thinking. But excuse me, I want to talk about the embarrassment. I do want to mention something that Taylor said last night that really stuck in my head. Taylor was talking about how when she goes to the grocery store, she always positions her body away from the credit card readers so no one behind her knows what kind of cards she's swiping to pay for her food, right? And so that really hit a chord with me because when I was on SNAP, I had several, we call them events, when I was in the grocery store, from people behind me, people beside me, people just not minding their own damn business, right? And paying more attention to what was in my cart and how I was paying for that. And so I do want to touch on the embarrassment, but Taylor's went an extra level and she said the guy followed her into the parking lot. She said that her family has a newer vehicle, a 2018 vehicle. What I know, because of talking to Taylor, they had been in a horrific car accident and they were lucky to be alive. And so that's how they came into this new vehicle. But the man behind her made a comment to her in line about her SNAP card. And then he actually followed her out into the parking lot. And, he's like, oh, it must be nice to drive a brand new car. What do you do? Sit on your butt all day and just do drugs, And so I just want to point out to people that this stuff really happens. This is real life. She said her neighbor happened to be there, her friend, her family friend, a couple cars over and heard the guy. And, went over. She said she thought they were going to have to call the police because the way that the man had chosen to defend her family, So I do just want to point out that these aren't stories. Whenever we talk about embarrassment, that's real stuff, and it happens all the time. And I think that we also need to pin in our minds to show a little grace to people whenever we do see them out, especially if we hear somebody throwing shade at them or just talking crap, right, about the way they choose to pay for their groceries. So that's my little sermon about that. But hey, Stormy, is she still here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Last night you said that you make and today you said that you make enough money now that you don't qualify for SNAP. Can we talk a little bit about how that's changed the way your family eats?
Well, quite honestly, I mean, whenever I had SNAP, I tried to budget and we would eat a little bit healthier. I still try to do that, but it's super tough because when you now have to have the money that you had for SNAP, you have to incorporate that in the money that you had for other stuff. You do without a lot of stuff. So, when you go to the store and you could buy 10 boxes of Little Debbie cakes for $10 or 10 packs of ramen, then that's what you're going to buy. I mean, so it's tough. And there have been times that I've went without so my kids could have, so that we were not going back to eating all junk. I mean, so it's a big deal because you shouldn't have to choose obviously as the sole provider in my household, I need to be well for my kids, right? But if I'm having to choose to not eat in order for my kids to not eat a whole bunch of junk, then that's what I do.
Yeah. Have you had to change where you shop?
If I can, I try to go to Save-A-Lot and Aldi's in I go to Save-A-Lot in Kingwood, but if I go to Aldi's, it's in Morgantown, so it's less frequently. So then you have to, when you budget a certain amount for groceries and you use that certain amount for groceries, I have to make sure that there's nothing else that might come up, like a termination notice that you don't expect.
Right.
That's going to make you now think, well, I shouldn't have went and bought groceries because now I'm stuck with a termination notice. And most of those places that you can qualify, that you can get assistance through for your termination notice, guess what? I don't qualify because I make too much. I mean, it's an endless vicious cycle that until those people that don't see what we know is the truth take time to open their eyes and see it, we're never going to get a change.
Yeah, I agree. I remember, for years I wouldn't get SNAP because of my pride. Like that's just real talk. That was the only reason. I was just too prideful. And Save a Lot that was the only grocery store I shopped in for years. And when I did finally go on SNAP, we went to Kroger, and I can remember standing in the salad dressing aisle, and my mom and my kids were with me, and I looked at my mom and I said, "Are you freaking kidding me? They sell Buffalo Ranch salad dressing?" And I was so overwhelmed with the choices. I know this sounds ridiculous to some of y'all who have never been there, but I was so completely overwhelmed with the choices and food. The cereal aisle, I just stood there and kept staring over and over again at all the choices of cereal, because Save a Lot, I'm so grateful for Save a Lot. We shop there all the time still, but they had ranch and Italian dressing, right? Every once in a while you can get a bottle of Thousand Island. So, but truly, SNAP opened up a whole new way of eating, a whole new way of thinking about food and the way you use food. And when I lost those SNAP benefits, that was the one thing I'm like, oh my gosh, we're used to having this, this, and this, right? We're used to having beef that you look at and it's beef. Like you don't have to read read the label all the time to find out what that is. Is that beef or is that pork? You know what I mean? And so anyway, I totally get that story about how SNAP really does provide an avenue to nutrition and to health that I don't think we talk about enough too. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Because for us, a family of 4, like I talked about last night, for the past 2 weeks, this week and next week, I don't get paid again until the 27th. And so for these 2 weeks, I'm having to stretch $88 for a family of 4 for food, toiletries, and gas to get back and forth to work.
And you work 2 jobs.
And I work 2 jobs. And I make almost $12 an hour at one job and $13 an hour at another. And I'm still having to make $88 stretch for 2 weeks. So for $88, I can go. Normally, I shop at Aldi. When I can go and splurge on groceries, which is spending $80, I go to Aldi. But because I only have $80 to last us for 2 weeks, and all of those things that I still need to buy, shampoo, conditioner, body wash, deodorant, laundry detergent, dishwashing liquid, all of that stuff I need,
Right.
plus food for 4 people, which is 2 teenage boys who eat me out of house and home anyway, and a husband that's a former football player who eats a lot. I'm going to Kroger and I'm buying 4 for $5 frozen pizzas. So $10, that's 2 nights of dinner, and a 24-pack of hot dogs for $3.99. I've spent $13, and I've got food for 7 days. And that's how we have to shop. You have to buy the stuff that you can afford. And the stuff that you can afford is not fresh produce and vegetables and fresh meats. You just can't. You have to shop in the inside aisles, not the outside, like you're supposed to.
Right.
My sister being a dietitian, I know the outside of the store. Don't go into the inner aisles. The healthier food is on the outside. Buy the low fat. You can't. You have to buy what you can afford, and what you can afford to last you for the amount of time that you have until you get paid again.
I just wrote that down.
I want to interject and say how I've seen a lot of comments popping up from people who are listening about WIC. And I wasn't going to give my spiel about WIC, but I feel like I need to now. The WIC program was absolutely instrumental in forming a nutritional palate for my kid. If we wouldn't have had WIC when my teenagers were younger, they wouldn't crave now healthy fruits and healthy vegetables and dairy products, because they wouldn't have had it, and they would have been raised on ramen noodles and boxed macaroni and cheese instead. And somebody else made a comment about the connection between SNAP and healthy foods. And healthy foods are so expensive. You go into Kroger and you spend $10, you get 3 bananas and like 4 apples, and that's it. That's not even 2 days worth of fruits for one person. And there's a huge connection between nutrition and SNAP benefits. And like I said, WIC was instrumental in it, still is for everybody who receives it. It's instrumental in forming that palate so that children can taste those foods when they're developing those taste buds.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like, one
absolutely.
of someone said last night when we were all talking that, you know, you never mind, I just lost my thought. I'm sorry. Never mind.
Well, Amber, I want to tell you,
My brain is starting to shut down. I apologize.
I know y'all don't, you didn't know the questions I was going to ask, but it's so funny because you're just jumping right in here and you're taking my questions and you're answering them independently. So great minds, I guess. So what I'm gonna start with Mary. Mary, what do you need from allies in fighting for changes to the food policies?
We need the fight for the income guidelines. That's the biggest fight, in my opinion, right now. We need those income guidelines changed so that they are realistic. Because right now, a family of 4 who makes $800 a month gets cut off on food stamps, and that's so unrealistic when you figure in that the national guideline for paying rent is typically 20 to 30% of your income, and you figure in your utilities and your car insurance and all of those things that are absolute necessities that we get in trouble if we don't have. Like if my electricity gets shut off, CPS gets called because I live in subsidized housing and I'm not taking care of my children in the proper way. But I have to keep those lights on so I can't buy groceries for a week. And income guidelines is right now the number one priority for change. Once we have those changed and they're realistic, I think that we'll see a huge decline in food insecurity and the need for things like food pantries and supplementals.
Yeah, good. Now I want to challenge you, Mary, because I always pick on you. I always like push you to look right. I just push you and keep like, come on, come on. So last night you mentioned something to me about Dollar General, and so I want to challenge you to think about policy changes that we might be able. I'm going to let you explain in a minute what you said about Dollar General, but I'm also going to challenge you to think about policy changes that we may be able to make that we would never consider to be policy changes in the first place, right? And I want to start with Dollar General. So can you tell me, like, talk a little bit about what you said?
Well,
You're going to get a lot of agreement, by the way, from the folks in the audience.
One of the biggest problems with food insecurity in my area is there's a lack of grocery stores, but there's a Dollar General on every corner, and the prices are so inflated for subpar products that it's insane to me. You can go to Kroger and get a box of pasta for 69 cents, but you go to Dollar General and you have to pay $2. And to be quite honest, it's not as good because it's so starchy and it just turns to mush when you cook it.
Yes.
I have a small gas station next to my house that it's a little mini mart. So they sell, some necessity foods, and we needed ketchup one day. And I was at work. And so I sent my kids over to get ketchup for lunch. And they paid $6 for a small bottle of Heinz ketchup. $6. I couldn't believe it. I yelled at them and I was like, no, you should have just done without it. But these retailers should not be allowed to inflate the prices as much as they do. Just because you accept EBT doesn't mean you have to take advantage of the people who are receiving the EBT benefits. I would like to also say there are some places that are on the flip side of that. Wheeling just opened up a new public market, and if you shop there with your EBT card, everything is half off. The reason why it's half off is because for every 50 cents a store makes in SNAP, they receive $1. So that public market is only taking from the government exactly how much they're spending. And I think that's wonderful. And I think that all retailers honestly should do that. Why are we are suffering so that these retailers can make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you brought up a couple of important points, but I went to a workshop, a webinar a couple of years ago on poverty, and it was said in the workshop, if you want to see the financial health of your neighborhood, start looking at the businesses that are popping up, right? Mm-hmm. And if you have payday loans, which we can't have in West Virginia, but we have them right across the line, right, that we're able to go and access. But if you have payday loan places, if you have title loan places, if you have Dollar General stores and Family Dollar stores, that's a clear indication that the socioeconomic status of your neighborhood is beginning to decline. And so, a lot of people, food access is part of this summit too, right? Because we have a lot of folks who just don't have access to food because of where they live, simple geography. But I think that what Dollar General has done is almost brilliant, because I cover 19 counties in the state, and I have seen some Dollar General stores and places where there is literally nothing else on either side of them for miles, and I'm like, that's brilliant, right? They are coming right to the neighborhoods and saying, hey, we know there's a need here that no one else is willing to take the risk to address. And so they get all that business. And so I'm like, what could we do when it comes to that? Like, even if it's on a local level in the community, could we start making arrangements with the Dollar General stores? Hey, you're our only access to food within 45 minutes. Is there a chance that we could work something out where, you keep us supplied with fresh fruits and vegetables? Like, what sort of policy ask, or just maybe community asks, could we work to the advantage of the people who are struggling with food access or with food insecurity whenever they're living in a neighborhood where those convenience stores are the only type of access that they have? So I think that maybe it's time for like radical, bold, right? That's the summit word, bold changes to food policy.
I think it depends on, Amy Jo, it depends on like the Dollar General in particular. Like where I live within 5 Dollar General stores within a mile from me. There are 5 within 1 mile. And one of them in particular, the closest one to me, sells 0 groceries that need to be refrigerated in any way, shape, or form. Because the people that own the building that they are in also own the IGA store. And so the IGA store will not allow them to accept EBT. They can't accept EBT. So that particular dollar store doesn't accept EBT cards because it takes business away from the IGA. IGA, who also charges almost $4 for a dozen eggs. It's a little itty bitty mom and pop store, and they are so ridiculously expensive that I only go in there if it is an absolute can't find it anywhere else must.
Wow. Yeah. I'm just blown away. Like, I know I have spent, because my family, we're bougie poor, that's what we call it. But we like to have A1 sauce at all times. Like, it's not a lie that it's good on anything, right? My girls eat French fries, chicken, it doesn't matter. But I know I have spent over $7 on the smallest bottle of A1 sauce that you could possibly get, just because I had to run around the corner to the convenience store and pick that up. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but I just want to, bring attention to the fact that that could be something that we could work on a local level, and really not even need, a lot of state or federal involvement in, right? Maybe we could just go into our community stores and start having just a real and honest conversation about what would it take for us to change the way this operates and the way that this whole food system here works. Yeah, you guys you're killing it today. So here's kind of an open question. Do you all believe that food insecurity is an economic justice problem?
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
I mean, it ties in with equity in wages. So that's an economic justice problem there. It ties in with availability to transportation. It ties in with just having, if you're at the lower spectrum of the SES, you don't have what you need to rise up. You
Yeah.
get stuck there. You get stuck at the bottom. You don't have the proper health. You don't have the proper nutrition. You don't have the proper clothes. You don't have the proper hygiene products. And so you can't step up that ladder. I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head.
It makes sense to me. Yeah.
Mary, it actually just reminded me of the point that I was going to make earlier that I lost. I believe it was Stormy last night that said that when I was talking about the fact that, West Virginians are number one in obesity, and part of the problem is because all we can eat is junk. And someone made the point that even though we're obese, obviously you can tell I'm overweight, but probably malnourished. And I believe it was Stormy that made that point, that even though we're obese because we eat the wrong stuff, we're malnourished because we eat the wrong stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. It's not lack of exercise, right? It's lack of health care and it's lack of nutrition.
Absolutely.
Well, and not only that, it was me that said that, but it's like I said, going without so your kids can have, so not eating.
Yeah.
That too.
Not eating at all is going to cause you to be overweight, because your body's not going to know when you're going to get your next meal, so it's going to store everything you eat as fat.
Yep.
And I know that I'm not the only mom on this panel that will lie to their kids and say, I'm not hungry, just so that my kids can have seconds. I will go without so that they
How
have
many times? How many times my kids have gone, Mom, is it okay if I get seconds? Absolutely. Well, but you haven't had any at all yet. It's okay, Bubba. I'm fine. Go ahead. But aren't you hungry? No, I'm good. I'm good. And lying straight through my teeth. But I would never let them know that.
Yeah, belly rumbling. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we eat crackers with peanut butter.
Absolutely. So my questions are just about done. What is and you guys can just go around if you want to, around robin. What's one thing that you hope telling your story today and your perspective helps like bring about?
Stop stigmatizing. There is no face for people who receive SNAP benefits. It can happen to anybody. And it's not just one type of person that has food insecurity. It's not just one type of person who goes hungry from one day to the next.
Yeah, and you're not out there wilding, right? You're not living high on the hog. You're not getting rich on SNAP benefits. Yeah, exactly. Jasmine,
Right,
what about you?
Yeah, I was gonna say these are educated people too. We all just said how we have degrees. At some point or other, we were all on SNAP. So it's not just lazy people who don't want to work. It's people who struggle because there's a lot of financial problems in the world. So we have to stop thinking that SNAP benefits and everything else are for people who don't want to work. We're all working and we need help.
Yeah, y'all have careers. Like real talk, right?
Yeah.
Careers. You picked a career track and you're still struggling with food insecurity. Yeah. Amber, do you have anything?
Just that don't think that those of us who don't qualify for SNAP don't still struggle. Because I don't qualify for it. My family doesn't qualify. But we still struggle
greatly. Yeah, I want to say this. I was talking to a woman the other day and I said to Amber, I'm like, this chick wants me to talk about the plight of the poor. And do you remember what you said to me, Amber? You
Uh,
said the plight of the poor is working your ass off at 2 jobs and having to feed your family cereal for the
yeah,
rest of the week because it's Tuesday and payday isn't until Friday.
yeah.
Right. And so that's what I was hoping. I intentionally chose the 4 women, 5 women with Taylor. I did that on purpose because you do have a career path. You know, you've done all the right things, right? According to society, you've done what you were supposed to do. And I think a lot of times, especially, I mean, even with my work, you know, if we hear SNAP is under attack, we rush, you know, we like run and try to knock down walls and protect SNAP with everything we have in us. But the fact of the matter is that we have done a really crappy job of looking out for the working poor in the state of West Virginia, you know, and so I think that is what I want people to commit to from
I
this
think
workshop.
I think it's everyone always rushes to save SNAP when it becomes under attack. Save the SNAP benefit, but SNAP is always looking for a way to get rid of us instead of helping.
Mm-hmm.
They don't
I
put out
say
what they take in.
Yeah. Go
I
ahead,
say
Stormy.
all the time to a lot of people, because I encounter a lot of people, you know, that are like me, and I say, you know, we should not have to work our asses off to struggle daily.
Amen. Amen. So I'm going to open this up now to the question and answer period. But first, I want to say challenge number 3 to everyone in the audience is to Google the poverty guidelines and to really sit and do the math. You know, a family of 3 falls at $21,000. So sit and think about how difficult it is. And my situation is my family of 3 is 2 teenage girls right now. And so, but sit and think about how costly it is. And in the state of West Virginia, I haven't, and I may be, correct me if I'm wrong, Seth. I haven't been able to find a self-sustainability study that's been done in the state of West Virginia since 2013. You know, and then it was saying $11 an hour, I think was one of the smallest amounts that I saw. So we really need to start having this conversation about what do we do for people who don't qualify for assistance, but are still struggling and just hurting out there, even though they're doing the best they can with what they have, right? And to all of you, I want to say that I hope that you have empowered folks with your stories of resilience and with the strength that you've shown today. You know, the fact that you can stand here and push through your fear and still tell your truth and share that truth. I would hope that I could expect absolutely nothing less from all of those people who want to join in this food fight. And so I just thank you very much. I appreciate you. I have so much love for y'all. You don't even know. I'm proud of you. And I expect the very same level of risk and resilience from those food advocates. And that's all I have. Spencer, if you want to take it over.
Yeah, there's been a handful of questions, and I think they're all really similar. So I'm going to try to summarize that. So essentially, you know, folks are really interested in what is sort of either gradual wean off of benefits, or maybe not even that. What does it look like to make more money and not go over the cliff, right? What recommendations would you women have to lawmakers who may or may not be listening to this call right now?
Oh, can I speak on that for a second?
Yes, go ahead, Stormy.
There's no middle ground when you start working and making more money. You're either not or you're over that cliff. There's no like happy medium. I've said for years we needed to have something to where if you gained employment, then you would keep your benefits for a certain amount of time, say maybe 3 to 6 months. Those folks that needed help with financial literacy and that kind of thing, because you have to turn in your pay stubs within 10 days, or your information within 10 days before you even get a paycheck. So by the time you get a paycheck, you've went over that cliff.
I would like to say the 6-month mark would be a game changer for so many people. They could set that up the way that they already have the West Virginia Works program set up for people who are transitioning from school to employment. I took advantage of that program when I had my youngest child, and that's where I was able to earn my degree. And they give you 6 months. You still receive those West Virginia Works benefits for 6 months after you start working. That would be a game changer for everybody who is on SNAP benefits. That if it did not take you completely off, even if they did a tier, taper down month by month, just a little bit, so that you can have that security blanket, so that you can have that stocked cabinet of canned goods that everybody needs. 6 months is, to me, 6 months is the magic number.
I tell you this, Amy Jo, how many years have I said we needed to write that policy and get somebody on board? And I was told, oh, there's already a committee that deals with that. No, the problem is, in my mind, people think that being poor is contagious, and they don't want to have those people around the table because they're going to catch something. Like, if you would talk to the people that it affects instead of talking about the people that it affects, change would be made.
Amen, Stormy. I mean, we went to bat a couple of years ago with some legislative work, Stop Punishing Work and Marriage, which was exactly what the situation that Amber described earlier. And I want to say, my mom told me the other day that in the 70s that my dad he worked for a construction company. They built houses, and so they were laid off every winter. And she's like, we used to have to pay for our food stamps. She's like, why don't they give you the option to pay for your food stamps? And so I don't know what that's about. I don't hear a lot about that, but my mom believes, she remembers that she put a percentage down towards her coupons, and so I'm thinking there are so many alternatives, at least to me, right? It's easy here because I'm not doing the policy or the finances, but there are so many alternatives to the way the system is set up and designed now, so anything that we can do because it really is a handout now, and it's designed that way on purpose, right? So anything that we can do to make it a hand up rather than a handout.
Someone just asked that if you paid for the food stamps, was it better? And I remember my mom doing that when I was wee young too. And it wasn't that it was better, it was that you had to pay a percentage to receive a larger percentage. So like if you paid $100, you could get like $400 in food stamps. I don't know if those are the correct numbers or not because it was so long ago, but that's how it worked. It was like prorated.
Yeah, I would pay to get food stamps if that was the case. Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I think that program has some interesting history in terms of the commodities the agriculture commodities it was taking off the market. I don't know, Josh Lones, I know you're really familiar with the history of this. Would you care to pop on and just share maybe 30 seconds of the history of that program?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So food stamps, when you paid for them, they were for very specific things that were in overproduction. So it was a much more restrictive program where now EBT, you can go in the store and choose anything with a nutrition label on it. That program was designed for specific products, which are now, those products have been converted into like the school system or the emergency food assistance program commodities that you receive at a food pantry. That SNAP or food stamps used to alleviate that production glut. And you would pay 50 cents to get $1 worth of stamps.
Okay.
But it was also, if you all had joined us on Monday, for those of you who joined, it was linked to price parity for farmers and ensuring that farmers also had a living wage. So there's a lot of history there that we can go into. But yeah, absolutely, this program needs some kind of reform.
And farmers need some kind of assistance, right? Yep.
So there's I apologize if I'm echoing. There's we have a handful of questions about how will it let I'm trying to summarize some of these questions. I think there's a general question about whether or not we think, you know, these stories that have been told today and the countless stories that have yet to be told, you know, whether they might make a difference. And I think maybe that's a question on the table for you guys.
They should.
Yeah, they absolutely should. But in the back of my mind and in my heart, I feel like I don't expect that it will. I hope that it does, but my hopes are not, I mean, my expectations are not high that it will.
Can I ask a question of y'all? Why don't you just quit? Like, why don't you quit your jobs? Why don't you go back to getting SNAP benefits, to getting health insurance? That's it. That's what I want to know.
I want to instill a good work ethic in my children. That's why I don't quit, because honestly, I don't know if SNAP benefits will be around when they're my age. And if they're not, they need to work hard. And I hate being that person that says, "Oh, you just need to work harder." But it was instilled in me, and I'm going to continue to instill it in my kids. That you have to work.
I have the same thing. I want my kids to have better than what I have. And I want them to provide better for their families than I have provided for them. I want them, you know, I want a better life for my kids, and I want to lead by example. Also, because I have actually found that job that's not work because I love what I do. And I love my job. Love it. I have found that job that I would do for free. Because I love it that much. And
Don't tell your boss that.
no, never. Never. But I still have a path of advancement in the career that I have. You know, I'm planning on taking some extra classes and hopefully next year, maybe 2, become a certified interpreter. That's my goal. But at the same time, I want my kids to be better than me. I mean, like I told you last night, you know, my oldest is a freshman in high school, and he's got a 5-year. So, I couldn't be more proud of the 5-year plan that he has created for himself, because he's gone about it in an extremely smart way.
One of the things that keeps me going right now is my 19-year-old recently told me that she's afraid to be an adult because I make life look easy. And, you know, if I struggle as much as I do and she thinks that I make life look easy, then I must be doing something right. So I keep going.
Nice.
My oldest asked me the other day if we could have a sit down and have a talk this weekend. I said, about what? And he said, I want you to teach me financial stuff, because I feel like they're not going to teach me in high school how to balance a checkbook and how to take care of a bank account and how to pay bills. And I said, you know what? You're right. They're not going to. Because they haven't since the 40s or 50s, when there was an actual home ec class. You know, they don't teach you that stuff in school. And Kids are not prepared for life.
Yeah, for real.
Well, Amy Jo, I think this wraps all of the questions that were in the chat. I'll kick it back to you to wrap up today.
Again, I want to thank you all so much for hanging in there. I know I can't read the chat because I really stink at multitasking on these video calls. But thank you for being so active and so involved and lively. I have such a great appreciation for that. And ladies, thank you. And we're gonna organize and we're gonna find people who will stand beside you, and we're just gonna start screaming these stories, right? So onward. Yeah.
Rattle the windows.
Rattle the wind. We're gonna rattle the windows. Absolutely. And I think I'm gonna go ahead.
I was just gonna say I saw a couple of people in the chat that were wanted to get a hold of me, and you have my information, right? So they can
Yes. Yes. Nice. And I'm gonna throw it to Josh to close it out.
Thanks, Amy Jo. Thank you so much to Amber, Stormy, Jasmine, and Amy Jo for facilitating this powerful session. One thing that makes me a little bit sad and frustrated is that on Monday we had 120 people that joined a call to listen to experts, and 50 today to listen to you all. And we also need to flip those tables, right? You all are the experts. But what we did learn on Monday is that there is this, massive problem in our food system between farmers that can't make enough money to eat and eaters that can't make enough money to eat well. But we also heard about some, strategies to counter the imperial power of the corporate elites at a municipal and state level that gave us some encouragement that we can do this. On Tuesday, our session on race and food access showed us that all of these issues that we talked about today are tied to, the racist roots of work requirements and the unseen, uncompensated, undervalued labor that has, very deep evil history in our country that we also need to be countering. And as we open that conversation, we need to keep it open. We need to continue to water the seeds that were planted on Tuesday and make sure that thorns don't come and choke those out. And so that's some work and challenge that was put to our coalition. On Wednesday, throughout the day, we heard about from legislators and lawmakers, elected officials, kind of demystifying the lawmaking process for us, that these people represent us, and we need to be pounding on their doors and rattling the windows. But we also heard about strategy around, how do we communicate well together, and how do we seize opportunities and moments like this COVID-19 crisis to demand the change that we want to see. On Thursday, yesterday, we talked about care labor and all of the people that are kind of working, burning the candle at both ends, trying to fill these cracks in the system. And I felt like yesterday we began drumming up some moral outrage, right? At there's people working tirelessly in this system to resolve these problems, and nobody is really seeing that or compensating them for it. And we also need policies that ensure that those on the front lines of resolving these issues are compensated for it. And then today, wow, I think we all need to be doing this in our communities, around the table, and figuring out ways to elevate these voices into the State House, into our elected officials' offices, and also connect these voices to other voices around the country that are demanding change, because it's going to take change at the federal level, it's going to take change at the state level, but we can also begin to make changes at the city council level, right? Just declarations that make the news, asking our council members to look into Dollar General and perhaps perverse practices there. These kinds of things is what the Food for All Coalition is about. And as a coalition, we have a lot of homework coming out of this week to understand how we take this momentum forward and how we continue to include all of you participants into the work. So with that, thank you to all who organized panels. Thank you to all who participated in panels. And yeah, we will see you in the coming months as session opens. So that's all I got. The videos, in case you missed any sessions, those are all archived. And I think this archive is important, right? Share it within your networks, share it with your elected officials and say, watch Friday's session or watch Monday's session. But yeah, we'll be in touch.
Bye. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.